Our today's movie story begging at. The man is infected with an unknown virus. He stumbles back to his village as if he hadn't eaten in 10 years. He gobbled up the food prepared by his wife. His eyes were bloodshot and he was staring death in the face. At the end of the night, the man had a mutation. His veins swelled up and his whole body twisted. Next to him was his child. His wife, who didn't know what was going on, came into the room. She found the man biting at something. The man turned around. The grim face immediately scared the woman. He had completely turned into a zombie and lunged at his wife. The zombie rushed out of the room and attacked the villagers. This unknown virus came from a few days ago. A group of soldiers hijacked an ocean-going merchant ship. Their aim was the foreign guns on board. But as one of the soldiers was carrying the cargo, suddenly a man went crazy and jumped on him. The others rushed to separate the two men. They took the soldier and left the place. But this soldier had, in fact, been infected with the virus. So the scene at the beginning happened. The weapons they looted were seized by Lord Kaneko Koen of the Imperial Court. Not only were all the weapons confiscated, it was also reported to the king on the charge of usurping the throne. The king listened to his slanderous words. He tortured the group to death. But no matter how hard they were tortured, they refused to reveal the mastermind. But at that moment, the mastermind came forward. He was the king's eldest son, the prince of the dynasty. His purpose was not to conspire against the king. He just wanted to use the weapons to eradicate these traitors. But how could the suspicious king believe his words? Eventually, the crown prince was placed on the charge of usurping the throne. In order not to implicate his men and their families, he chose to commit suicide by disembowelment. Before he died, he wrote a suicide note to his brother during the Qing dynasty. He asked him to go back to Joseon and take his sister-in-law from the palace. Li Qing, who received the note, soon arrived in Joseon with his entourage. But as soon as they got off the ship, they found that there was no one to receive them. Although he grew up in the Qing dynasty, at least he was still Li Qing of Joseon. Then they went into the village near the pier. They didn't expect the village to be in a state of disrepair. There wasn't even a single person in the village. It was as if there was a war. They walked into the interior of the village. There were charred bodies everywhere. All the signs indicated that something terrible had happened here. Since there was no one to meet them, the two had to spend the night here. But at that moment, the guards who came to meet them arrived late. However, Li Qing, who has seen the world, soon found out that something was not normal. So many people came to meet them, but they didn't bring an extra horse. Did they want to carry themselves back on their backs? Moreover, these people were full of murderous aura. They didn't look like the Praetorian Guard at all. After saying that, he pulled out the sword at his waist. Seeing that they were recognized, the killers stopped pretending and immediately launched a siege on the two men. But when the two sides were in the middle of a fight, a zombie suddenly rushed out and pounced on one of the killers, biting him on the neck. Immediately after that, there was an ominous hissing sound all around. Countless zombies swarmed from the roof of the house. The good villagers were all turned into zombies. They were bloodthirsty and biting at every sight. A zombie jumped on Li Qing. He blocked it with his sword. Li Qing also realized that these villagers had lost their humanity. He cut off the head of a zombie with one slash. The killers were pounced on one after another. Li Qing's entourage weaved through the zombies, dodging one zombie after another. But there were so many of them that they surrounded the two in an instant. Li Qing swung his sword, but an arrow suddenly flew out. A woman appeared on the roof of the house. She shot an arrow that made a loud noise and attracted the zombies' attention. Then several more men appeared. They moved cleanly and seemed to understand the weaknesses of the zombies and quickly wiped out all the zombies. It turns out that these people are the late brother's men. The leader was called Park Yung-ya. They have known for a long time that the Khan in the court is planning something bad and will definitely send assassins to kill Li Qing. So they came to help. Li Qing and the villagers were all turned into zombies. They are afraid of sunlight and can only move at night. The only way to kill them completely is to cut off their heads or stab them in the heart. The bodies must also be burned. They are very sensitive to sound, so they need to get out of here as soon as possible. Park Yung-ya took Li Qing to the survivors' gathering place. The villagers who survived are here. The cells are still holding villagers who are about to mutate. They could turn into zombies at any moment. On the other side, Kaneko Koen is planning something. He fed a zombie in the cellar. Then the king's consort was led here. He opened the cellar and let out the zombie. Soon the consort was pounced on by the zombie. The next morning, many concubines were dining with the king. They did not know that the consort, infected with the zombie virus, was among them. The king is still enjoying his meal, but the consort had already started to mutate. The blood vessels extended to her neck, her eyes turned white, and her body twitched involuntarily. The zombie consort pounced on the king and bit him on the arm. Because Kaneko Koen blocked news of the village's infection, everyone thought that the consort was an assassin sent by the rebels. So they didn't know that the king was infected. Li Qing, on the other hand, was preparing to return to the palace. The villagers wanted him to ask the court to send troops to destroy the zombies. Li Qing also agreed to do so. To protect Li Qing's safety, Park Yung-ya and the others went with him. But the area has been sealed off as a plague area. All villagers were forbidden to leave the village. Li Qing could only go with his entourage to the palace. Li Qing met his father, whom he had not seen for a long time. The first thing he did was to report to him that the village was infected with the zombie virus. He did not expect that no one in the entire court knew. They were all kept in the dark by Kaneko Koen. Li Qing asked his father to send troops and let him lead the army to destroy the zombies. The king also agreed to do so. He prepared to leave with his sister-in-law, but Kaneko Koen stopped him. He said that the king had withdrawn his military order and warned Li Qing it's better to go back to Qing dynasty now, otherwise the consequences will be very serious. The whole court is King Kaneko's inner circle. Li Qing did not dare to do anything rashly. At that moment, the ambassador of the Qing dynasty came to the palace. All the officials of the court knelt to greet them. To entertain the ambassadors, the king had prepared a lively party. Unbeknownst to them, the zombies have spread to all corners of the palace. The palace maids and servants were infected. The king also began to mutate. Kaneko Koen's plan was about to succeed. The zombies outside began to gather, and the people at the party did not even notice. They were still singing and dancing. Happily, the king was also mutating. When he staggered onto the dance floor, the crowd thought he was going to dance. But the court lady who was dancing noticed that something was wrong. By the time she reacted, it was too late. Everyone was frozen in place. Only Kaneko Koen did not change his face, because he had planned all this. Soldiers rushed forward to check, but they didn't dare to stop them because of the king's status. Li Qing then arrives and sees the grim-faced father. He instantly understood that he was infected with a zombie virus. However, the next moment, the king was pierced by Kaneko Koen's sword. The king of Joseon was killed in public, completely ignoring the ambassadors of the Qing dynasty. Kaneko Koen said he had turned into a zombie. The country has changed its name. From now on, I am the king of Joseon and no longer serve the Qing dynasty. By now, a large number of zombies had arrived. Kaneko Koen had already prepared a retreat. He successfully retreated under the cover of his men. He only had to wait for the palace to fall and send his troops to clear out the zombies at dawn. Li Qing had no time to grieve. He rushed into the crowd of zombies, found his sister-in-law hiding under the table, and led her to escape from the zombie siege. Li Qing's attendant brought 2 horses. Then they got on their horses and fled the scene. Li Qing escaped and found the leader of the Praetorian Guard. He told him to gather all the Praetorians and stop the zombies at all costs. Otherwise, the whole palace is finished. As soon as the words were spoken, the zombies swarmed in. They fought their way out of the horde. Li Qing goes to the dungeon to free the imprisoned villagers. The Forbidden Army prepares multiple defenses against the attack of the zombies. But there were so many zombies that the fortifications were quickly breached. A large number of zombies poured into the palace. The Forbidden Guards had to fight to the death. The zombies cornered them. Li Qing, who was in the dungeon, was also attacked by the zombies. The cell door couldn't stop them either. As the zombies swarmed around them, a monk immediately pried open a door. Li Qing and Park Yung-ya used it to stop the zombies. The others took the opportunity to get out. In the end, they all escaped unscathed. The leader of the Forbidden Army led the soldiers to fight until dawn. They suffered heavy casualties. A zombie had also bitten the leader on the arm. Luckily, the zombies were afraid of sunlight. They retreated in droves and hid in the shadows. And Kaneko Koen was waiting for this moment. What they needed to do now was to destroy all the zombies while it was daylight and start a new dynasty. The ministers had no choice but to submit under his pressure. But while Kaneko Koen was making his speech, a zombie suddenly rushed out and jumped on him. But he quickly took care of it. When he asked if anyone else was infected, the others looked at King Kaneko's palm. It turned out that the zombie had just bitten him. The ministers immediately changed their faces and were ready to kill him. But Kaneko Koen is, at least, a battle-hardened military general. A few civil officials are no match for him. All of them were killed by him. Even his inner circle was not spared. Everything he had planned was ruined. How could Kaneko be willing to accept this? He cut off the infected arm and took a lot of drugs to suppress the virus. He became a half-human, half-zombie monster. Li Qing, who escaped from the dungeon, rendezvoused with the Praetorian Guard. To prevent the zombies from attacking again at night, he ordered the chief of the Praetorian Guard to send the soldiers guarding the border to support. They stay in the palace and try to hold off the zombies. After discussion, they intend to draw all the zombies to the king's hall with the sound of drums, put dry firewood all around, and pour flammable liquid on it. When they all entered the hall, they would burn them to death with fire. Soon it became dark. All the zombies came out. The whole palace became a place for the zombies again. Everyone immediately entered the hall to destroy the zombies. They were going to attract all the zombies to this place, then they used fire to burn them all to death. Li Qing chose to stay and light the fire. But Park Yung-ya said that this country could not live without a monarch, and he pulled down his collar. The zombies had infected him. The crowd was in grief, but there was nothing they could do but leave the hall. Just as they reached the wall, they heard the drums sounding in the hall. All the zombies gathered in the hall at the sound. With the little consciousness he had left, Park Yung-ya kept beating the drum. When the zombies filled the hall, Park Yung-ya held out until the end before lighting the fuse. But it didn't work out as expected. The fuse was stomped out by a foot. It turned out to be the half-human, half-corpse Kaneko Koen. Park Yung-ya was unable to complete the mission. Kaneko Koen stepped towards him and stomped out the last hope. Then Park Yung-ya was brutally killed. The fire was slow to ignite. Li Qing realized that something was wrong and there should have been an accident. But there was only one chance, so Li Qing had to take a risk. He mounted his horse and rushed to the hall, wielding the sword in his hand with agile positioning and sharp knife skills, pulling back and forth among the zombies. Li Qing walked through a horde of walkers. Finally, he arrived inside the hall. He saw Park Yung-ya, who was already dead, and Kaneko Koen was sitting on the dragon chair. But he didn't stop Li Qing right away. Li Qing continued to bang on the drum. Hearing the drums, the zombies swarmed into the hall again. He was beating the drum and killing the zombies at the same time. But just as he was about to light the fire, Kaneko Koen struck again. With the zombie virus, Kaneko Koen's strength had increased. Li Qing was no match for him. Park Yaki, outside the palace, realized that Li Qing was in danger and shot an arrow with fire at the main hall. The arrow stuck in the pillar of the hall. Li Qing leapt up to the beam, took off the rocket, and threw it down. The fire was instantly ignited. The smell of roasting meat filled the air. Li Qing took the opportunity to go to the roof. But to his surprise, Kaneko Koen also caught up with him. The two continued to fight. Li Qing was defeated again. Kaneko Koen's slashes were all powerful. Just as Kaneko Koen was about to kill him, Li Qing dodged the fatal blow and, following the trend, got back to the roof. He stabbed Kaneko Koen in the chest. Like all zombies, his heart and head are the most important points. But Kaneko Koen wanted to die with Li Qing. Li Qing took the opportunity to break free. Then he grabbed a 40 meters knife and stabbed him. The tiles broke, and both of them fell together. However, Li Qing grabbed the beam and climbed up again. Meanwhile, supporting soldiers arrived armed with foreign guns. They quickly wiped out the zombies. Soldiers and civilians are cheering for the birth of a new king. This film uses ancient times as a background, combined with modern zombies. It shows a different kind of zombie movie. Apart from the main character's plot armor, it is still a zombie film worth watching. For those who are interested, you can check it out.